Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Catalyst webinar series presented by the Education Committee for the Southern California PGA. The Catalyst webinar series is a bi-weekly educational platform for creating success and change in your club and career. We're very excited to have head golf professional from El Caballero Country Club, Tasha Bohlig, and their general manager, PGA General Manager Phil Lopez, presenting this morning. They recently hosted the 75th U.S. Girls Junior at El Caballero this past month, and what an experience and a ride that was for them, I'm sure. And they're coming on this morning to talk to us about elevating your club in major events. Tasha Bohlig, is it true that you've been at El Cab for 22 years?
Yeah, I hate to say it out loud, but yes, sir.
Like I was doing my my homework earlier this morning, and I was like, okay, Tasha, you went to Washington State, you graduated in 2002, and you've been at El Cab for 21 years. And I was like, wait a minute, that means that's
Can't get rid of me. They're trying, but they can't get rid of me.
fantastic. Of course, you played college golf there. And Phil Lopez, you have a long storied history in the Southern California section of the PGA. You've been a general manager. Originally, you were with Troon in their organization as a GM for about 10 years. You were the GM at Woodland Hills, Satakoy Country Club for 5 years. And I think you've been at El Cab for just about 8 now.
Correct.
Anyway, good morning, you two. Go ahead and take us through the presentation. This is the Catalyst webinar, so we try and make it as interactive as possible. I'll interject with questions for all the members that are on the call this morning. You got a question or want to interject a question, raise your hand, and we'll ask it. It's all yours, Tasha. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Well, we thought this would be a great opportunity to not only review the 75th U.S. Girls Junior Championship that we were so privileged to be able to host, but also we thought that we would take a little different spin and help you to elevate your club events, give you some ideas that we implemented during the championship week, that we also take that perspective to a Halloween event at the club or a camp during the summer or our member guest, and we thought we would share some of our strategies and help you. So Phil, why don't I go to the next screen, and then why don't you take us into, we can skip the agenda. We're going to talk about the tournament and then going right into how to elevate your events. But Phil, why don't you give us a rundown of the championship?
Yeah, so as you can see there, this is the first time in over 30 years that the U.S. Girls Junior was hosted in Southern California. As I think we all know, junior golf in Southern California, it's kind of the hotbed of the entire country. There's not a lot of markets that have the kind of junior golf program and produce the players that Southern California does. So it was a big initiative for the USGA to bring back the girls junior to Southern Cal. Obviously, I think we can all sort of see that the USGA is bringing a lot more championships to California. I think they certainly enjoy the weather predictability, especially in the summertime. So it was an honor for us to be selected to host the 75th edition of the Girls Junior. We had hosted a USGA championship in 2018, the U.S. Women's Fourball, and the club has hosted in the past LPGA championships back about 20 years ago from 2002 to 2004. So there's kind of a storied history here with some championship golf.
In the process of them coming to El Cab, was it more of them coming to you, or you had to sell the event to them?
So it's a little bit of both, actually. You sort of make it known to them after we had done the 2018 Fourball, and they had a great experience here with that event. We certainly made it known to them that we were interested in hosting another championship. And we stayed in close communication with the USGA as we went through our golf course renovation in 2021 into what we are today. And that was a big part of them sort of evaluating El Cab for a summertime championship, which obviously most of their championships are in the summer. And so we were very adamant that we wanted to host another championship. So it was a mutual thing. They obviously have to do it here, or they have to want to do it here, I should say. But their experience in 2018 was really fantastic, and they were excited that how the golf course turned out from the renovation, and they were excited to bring something here. So we were thrilled to get the Girls Junior as a bigger, more prestigious event. We got some television coverage out of it on Peacock and Golf Channel, which was great to see. And I think a testament to the golf course, we found that our championship match with Astris Talley and Rianne Maliksi is probably two of the best players in the field. Even from the standpoint of our semifinal matchups, we had Jasmine Koo and Gianna Clement in the semifinals, which were also two of the other of the probably the top 4 or 5 players in the field. So their cream really rose to the top from the golf course perspective. And obviously the final match with Astris and Rianne was just fantastic. Rianne really dominated the match here at El Cab. But then, as we all saw a couple weeks later, they actually both met in the final of the women's amateur, which is the first time that's ever happened. That the two girls that met in the final of the girls junior also met in the women's amateur final, and Rianne won both of those, obviously. But pretty remarkable to have that happen just in a 2-week period. So it was great for El Cab. We got a lot of publicity out of the women's amateur as well. They talked a lot about the final of the girls junior during that match as well. So we're very proud of that, and very proud of hosting a championship of this caliber for sure.
Now, was
We're
it
also, oh, go ahead, John.
I'm so sorry. Was it a profitable endeavor, or is it one of those more publicity-based break-even?
Yeah, it's more of a publicity-based thing. When you host an amateur championship for the USGA, you're hosting it as a club, so there's definitely cost associated to it. Everybody sort of approaches that in a different way. And you can raise money to offset that cost. You can have the membership support that scenario. So, and there's a big ask from a membership to do volunteering and what have you. And we found that the membership was really proud of having this event. And we had a lot of support from a volunteer standpoint from our membership. And I think once the championship starts, you see a membership really rally around what really feels like a national championship that you're hosting when the USGA shows up and the flags go up and the signage and the sort of the pomp and circumstance of it. It feels like you're hosting the US Open. They may not have the crowds that you have at a US Open, but the feel of it is the same. And the way they treat the players is the same. So it's a really cool thing to be a part of. But certainly when you're hosting an amateur, there's definitely some cost associated to it. But we really felt like that was well worth that cost just from the prestige of it, the notoriety of it, the giving back to the girls' game and junior golf, the television coverage, all those things sort of combined really made it feel like this was the right decision for the club.
For sure.
And it sets us on a path of just hosting more championship golf, which is what we're really interested in doing here. And it'll open up the doors for another USGA championship in the future. And it also opened up a door for us to host the LPGA next year, which is happening in April. With Wilshire's closure, we will actually be the host of the JM Eagle LA Championship next April in 2025.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to mention the LPGA and that Rianne's going to be getting a sponsors exemption into the field in April, which will be neat to have her back. But it was quite a contrast from planning. We really planned the championship from beginning to end. Whereas, conversely with the LPGA, they have a company that's running it. So it's very different in terms of preparation and planning. It was really good experience for us to host an event like this, where we really could have an impact with the players and their families from the beginning to the end of the week.
Yeah, it's very much your club hosting it and your membership getting involved in that action, right? So it's USGA is there to run the championship part of it, and the club is there to run all the other aspects of it. So that's kind of what we're going to talk about today is
So
how do all those other aspects go, and what did we do that was maybe unique and different that you could take to your own events at your own club?
Fantastic.
So from an experiences for all, we really try to look at all events we do here, but in particular with the girls junior, we really tried to look at this from the very beginning as to how all the different types of attendees will experience the club. The unique part about the girls junior is there's a tremendously large family component to it. So all these girls are 18 and under to play in the girls junior. So they all travel with entourages. Family members, brothers, sisters, mothers, fathers, aunts, uncles, grandparents, what have you. I think the average was a little over 3 people per player that travels with the girls. So we really had to look at it from the perspective of how are the players going to get treated and how did that experience go for them and the pieces of it that are unique to just being a player. And then how are we going to deal with the family members and a mother and father who are there to watch their child as they show up to the property to when they leave the property, and how are they going to be dealt with, and where do they go and where do they sit and how do they get food and how do they get water? And we were hosting this in July in Tarzana, which we all know is, you know, we were hot. It was no doubt about it. We were 100 degrees and on most days. So it was, how are we going to deal with the experience that family members had when they were here? Tasha and I visited the prior year's site in 2023 at the Eisenhower Golf Course at the Air Force Academy in Colorado Springs, and great championship, wonderful facility, amazing to be at the Air Force Academy. But we learned a lot there, and we learned a lot of some of the things of how not just the players are treated, but how the family members are treated. We'll show you some pictures later that kind of really demonstrated that and why we took maybe a little bit different approach of trying to look for things from how they arrive at the property, how they walk in the front door, how they find their player on the driving range, where they sit on the driving range, how they get to the first tee, what their experience is like on the golf course, and then what their experience is like following the golf turn or the round of their player, and how do they get shade and air conditioning and food and snacks and all that kind of stuff. We found that the prior year site didn't really think about that a lot. And we were attendees at that event, and we had a hard time finding a bottle of water at times. And so we really tried to think of it as a very kind of A to Z process. And that requires a lot of sort of forethought and energy and effort into that, of literally walking out to the front gate and saying, okay, standing there looking at it like, okay, how are they going to get in? How is a spectator going to get in? How is a family member going to get in? How is this all going to go? When they park their car, where are they going to go? How are they going to walk into the clubhouse? Are they going to walk around the backside? Are they going to walk in the front door? So
yeah, we physically as a staff walk from beginning to where they're going to park, to the different routes, to what are some of the no-go areas that you don't want them to see? Where do you want to direct them? Where's registration? Do we want to direct them to the golf shop? Okay, if we want to direct them to the golf shop, we need to have proper signage, or we need to have a tour. We walk kind of thinking about every single subset of person or participant that's coming the week.
Was there, were you allowing parking on property, or was
so for the players and their families and USGA staff, yes. But in the beginning of the event, just that amount of people pretty much takes up the whole parking lot. So then it becomes a scenario. Okay, what do you do with volunteers? What do you do with staff members? What do you do with spectators? Things like that. So that was a lot of forethought into, okay, well, they're going to have to park off site, which was mostly just street parking. We have plenty of street parking around here, John. We didn't expect tons of spectators and that kind of thing, but then it became a scenario. Okay, well, how are we going to get them in? How are they going to get from the street all down into the club? As anybody's been to El Cab knows, we had a huge long driveway and we had this big parking lot, and we didn't want people walking through the parking lot because then cars are coming in and out. So we had to think about, okay, well, how are they going to go down the driveway? So we changed our traffic flow. You came in through the front gate, but you didn't leave through the front gate. You went out through an alternate gate, which we typically don't do on a daily basis. But we really had to think about pedestrian traffic and car traffic coming in and out of the parking lot. So we designed a scheme that really kept those two things separated, and it worked really well and it flowed really well. And we really tried to think about it from that perspective. So
no valet parking?
Not for during the week of the championship, no. Yeah. Tasha brought up a good point too. I would really encourage people to think about this too, because we all at our facilities, and everybody has this, everybody's got a part of their club that they don't want people to see. Right? It's a loading dock, it's a cart barn, it's a whatever the case might be. And we have that too. And ours is kind of our cart barn area. We have this place is, 65 years old, and cart barn is probably 120 years old, it looks like. And so there's a part of that we just kind of try to avoid people walking through. And if anyone's ever been to El Cab and you park in the lot and there's kind of a back way to get to the pro shop, and anybody that's ever been here kind of knows that, it's a really quick and easy way to get over there, and people use it on a daily basis. But we didn't really want people walking back there. So we really thought about how do we sort of block that off properly without making it look weird. And so we had cool signage, and we had stuff that we did in those areas to really try to direct traffic in the right way. And it makes a huge difference when you have people come to your property for the first time. You don't want the first thing they see the back of the cart barn.
Exactly. Before we go to the next slide, I would also just share that, when in terms of the front gate or whatever kind of first impression that you have at your facility, that person or those individuals that are there, they're you know, a huge part of giving a proper experience, the information that you're sending them. Think about like if we have a guest coming to our club for a member guest and their, you know, name isn't registered at the gate or they don't know where to go. And that's their first impression that they're getting coming to your facility. So a big part of what we wanted to make sure is that not only during the championship, but during a member guest or during a camp or whatever, our front gate is our first line. They're getting notified properly. We have proper signage, and everything that starts there is so crucial in order to send them on their way and have a great experience.
So on to knowing your audience. This was a key for us in the championship. We were dealing with and hosting a demographic that the average age is 16 years old. So tailoring what we did to that demographic from a player lounge, player hospitality standpoint, the ladies' locker room was players only scenario. So not even their parents were allowed to go in there other than like on the first orientation day where they get to kind of see what it looks like. But tailoring that experience inside the player locker room lounge to what kind of snacks we put in there, what kind of ice cream we had, the games we had, the bracelets, and we had a little custom bracelet station. They could make their own custom bracelets and they were giving them to their friends. And it was a very transformative experience in there. We took out all of our regular furniture that we typically have on a daily basis, and we brought in, you can see in the bottom left corner there, we brought in blue velvet couches and things like that. It really made it feel like a younger person's locker room, which is obviously not typically the case at LCAV on a daily basis. And it really transformed the space, and we got a lot of really positive feedback about what that experience was like in there. The photo opportunities was huge. We actually kind of worked with a vendor that we use for a lot of bar mitzvahs and things like that we do at the club. And we designed like 4 or 5 different photo opportunities around the property, not just in the locker room, but around the property, so that people could do the selfies and the Instagram shots and all that kind of stuff, because this demographic really, you know, kind of lives for that stuff. So it was a huge part of what we thought about. There was really none of that we saw in the prior year's event. And we really felt like that was an important part of it. So you can see that picture there in the middle with the girls inside the LCAB magazine shot. That was really a custom built thing and almost literally every player and their family took that picture. It was so popular, and it was right outside the locker room, and it was really easy to get to and see. And it was super fun, and people really enjoyed that part of it. So we really tried to think about things from the perspective of a 16-year-old girl. And we had, you know, we have young people that work for us. I've got a 16-year-old daughter, and we all had sort of consulted with who we could to what that should look like, because I certainly don't know that demographic other than my 16-year-old daughter. So it was really helpful for us to take that perspective. And so I think it's important when you're looking at your club events, whether it's a senior club championship or it's a junior club championship or it's a family event on Halloween or it's a, you know, knowing the demographic that you're hosting. And we really look at those things very critically on an all the time basis. What are we going to do with the 300 kids that come to 4th of July? But we also have 1,200 adults that come to 4th of July. So we really look at what that experience is like for each demographic, and we tailor a part of that event to that demographic. And it really has shown us that our events at the club have grown and become more popular. And they've also grown in cost. I would tell you, John, I think that's kind of an important thing to kind of convey to people too. We've worked so hard at making the experience better. And when we've done that and when we've accomplished it successfully, even when the price of those things has gone up, we don't hear a word about that, because people just, they have such a great time. They don't really worry about the fact that 4th of July used to cost $50 and now it costs $100. I use the example that Tasha created here and really helped create with our junior golf camp, that we really took a very comprehensive approach to what that was like. And kids camp in the summertime is not a cheap thing to come to. It's, you know, $700 a kid, and not one complaint from a member about what that costs, because they all love it. It's so much fun, and they have such a great time, because not just golf and hitting tennis balls around. We have vendors that come and do magic shows and fun things, and Kona ice trucks, and we have pickleball involved. We have swim involved, and we do all kinds of crafts, and it's a whole all-encompassing all-day thing that's very thoughtful. And it's a really great way to look at it, and you can find yourself increasing your revenue and your experience level, and everybody's happy. The members are happy, and you bring in a more of a revenue component to the club, that's kind of how we approached what we did with the girls junior. You got to know your audience, and you got to tailor things to that audience.
And I would also add, like, one of the areas where, excuse me, we had a chance to shine was our welcome reception on the Saturday before the championship began. And if I go back two slides, sorry, this is a picture from the welcome reception. And we had the opportunity to kind of put on our own party. And with that, we had heard that, previous sites had speakers. In fact, when we were in Colorado for our site visit, they did have people speaking to the girls, a seated situation. And these are 16-year-old girls. They're not interested, and they just played practice rounds. They're not interested in sitting down and listening to someone talk about, the history of golf, as much as we would like them to know more about it.
And we were on a military installation, John, so you can imagine it was like we had colonels up there talking. It's like it was cool for me. I don't know how cool it was for the 16-year-old girl.
It was cool, but the know your audience thing was pretty important. So there's some highlights in pictures that you can see on the screen where we had, caricature artists. We took a little spin on the Build-A-Bear where we brought in teddy bears and let them all dress them up. And they were like screaming, running to the table, dressing their bears and taking pictures with them. And I think it's just a good reminder, as Phil said, that, if you know your audience and you're putting on a show for the people that you have there, they're going to be really not only thrilled with the result, but I think financially it's great for the club. And it's something people talk about. We've had people, like I've had parents that have written thank you notes to, myself or to Phil, and they specifically talk about the welcome reception and how it made them feel, and how, like, for lack of a better word, welcome they felt to the club. But they just had a great night, a great experience, and they felt like it was a great kickoff to the championship.
John, you're muted if you're.
You had said that you had gone to Colorado Springs to the U.S. Girls Junior the prior year. How much of what you ended up doing came from your experience back there on what?
So I think, kind of generally speaking, we sort of try to look at events always that way at El Cab, and always have. I think the biggest thing we learned from going to the Colorado site was, how do you treat the families that are there in attendance with the girls? Everybody sort of does a good job with the players. Like, they always have player lounge, and they got ice cream and snacks and fun stuff and all that. And everybody does a pretty good job of that. And so did they. And Colorado did a really nice job with their player lounge. But what we felt like they didn't do was they didn't really think about the parents or the other attendees that were there. So there's a perfect example here in a very small microcosm, the driving range up there. You see that photo in the top left. So that was the driving range at Colorado Springs at the Eisenhower course. And your spectator viewing area was basically just some benches on some asphalt behind the range tee. And it was hot in Colorado too. It was 95 degrees plus, and higher humidity and altitude and the whole 9 yards. It wasn't real comfortable sitting out there. And every one of these parents wants to watch their child practice. They follow them around the entire time. They are right there on the driving range. Now, parents in this championship are not allowed to caddy for their children. So they're very much on top of wherever they can be to watch their child. And so we really thought, Tasha and I walked away from Colorado thinking, wow, we have to really think how we're treating the parents, because it wasn't the greatest experience being there as a spectator or a parent. And so you'll see in the bottom left there, that was our driving range set up for the championship. And you see that large tent there with the chairs under it. That was our parent viewing area. And we actually had two of those. There was one on that side of the range, and then one just to the right of that on the other side of the range. It was a massively helpful thing that we got a ton of compliments about. That I can't believe you guys thought about putting a parent viewing area with shade. It was a stupid, simple thing, John, but it made a massive impression on people that we actually thought about that. And so from that perspective, again, it's kind of knowing your audience and understanding what the demographics are going to be like. Every single parent that went over there to watch their kids sat in one of those chairs under the tent. Nobody stood at the rope on the range, which is what you were doing basically in Colorado. You were sitting at the rope on the range. We made sure we had water at those tents. We had coolers of ice, bottles of water at every one of those tents. We thought about people walking around the golf course that way when they were there as parents. We had water stations on the golf course that were not necessarily just on the tee box, because they have coolers on every tee. And the USGA will tell you, oh, it's okay if parents go up there and take those bottles. But sometimes people aren't comfortable walking onto the tee box when there's players up there. And they don't walk up there and take those bottles of water, and then they're searching for water. So we had stations around the golf course, not on the tee box, just for parents to get water. We had ice cold towels on the golf course for people who were getting overheated and really needed something cold on their face. We thought about all that type of stuff. And then from the standpoint of once they came in from their round or before their round, but to get out of the heat, we were the first facility that hosted a girls junior to ever have a parent lounge. We actually had a family lounge. We turned one of our rooms into a family lounge, which is what you see there on the right-hand side of the screen. That is typically our conference room. We turned that into our parent lounge. And there was a place for parents to go and their families to get air conditioning, to get snacks. We had popcorn and drinks and fruit in there. We had a charging station for people's cell phones so that they could charge their phones when they were in there. We thought about every aspect of that. We had, you'll see on the table there, we had Connect 4 games and some board game. We had little things because they all had brothers and sisters that were coming too. A lot of these families had 8 and 9-year-olds with them. And so we thought about how that was going to impact them. And we wanted to make sure when they went in that family lounge, that kid could get some popcorn and he could play Connect 4. And it made a huge difference. People hung out in there all day because they were getting out of the heat and they were getting some air conditioning and they could get some water and some snacks. Massive impression on people.
We were watching them in Colorado, and a lot of families were just standing outside because they had nowhere to go. Yeah. And when we were talking about, like, one of the typical sort of responsibility host is to provide a gift to the players. And a part of our gift was to have a family gift as well. So when they checked in through registration, when they came through the lobby, we had a photo booth that was printing out prints with picture frames ready on hand for them to take with them. The family also got a picture frame as well with a family picture. And then on the tour, it's, okay, not only are you looking at the dining room, then you're walking through our clubhouse, here's the family lounge, and here's a gift for you. And if you need any restaurant recommendations in the area, like Phil said, all the great snacks in there. But I think it's just, we're not just hosting players, we're hosting a family at our club. And I think it was a good lesson to think about, what are you doing in your camps? Like, what are the parents doing if a parent maybe dropped off a 5-year-old that's a little young for your camp and they kind of hang out, where are they going to be? What are you doing with those families? So I think it's just a good reminder that there are other people in your events that you need to think about. And it was really eye-opening for us to see that in Colorado.
We look at it too. I would tell you, John, like, for instance, at a member guest, let's say, and we might have a member guest, or we call it ours is called the Gaucho, and we have nights where it's just the guys and it's like a stag night thing. But then we have a night that's like, it's for everybody, the wives, spouses, significant, whatever. Everybody can come, and it's a big dinner and there's a huge night. But we think about, well, what time are the spouses or the wives actually going to show up? And they always come earlier than the dinner is going to start, and they always come before the guys are done playing golf. So we think about, okay, where are they going to go? What are they going to eat? How are they going to get a drink? Where are they going to sit? So we put stuff out specifically for the spouses, because we know, and if we say it's going to start at 6, they're showing up at 5 because they want to see their guys. They want to watch them finish. They want to do whatever it is they're going to do. We think about all of that to make sure that when they do show up, they're not just walking around like, hey, can I get a drink? Or is there anywhere to get something, snack to eat or something like that? We put it all out and they know exactly how that's going to be when they get here. So it's just thinking about all the constituents that are coming to support something like that. It's not always just the players. And you got to think about the other aspects of it. Even from the staff standpoint, we thought long and hard about how we were going to treat our staff during the championship, how they were going to eat lunch, when they were going to get breaks, where they were going to eat lunch. We used basically all the rooms in the place. How are we going to deal with that part of it? You can see there, our top left picture there is a big part of our food and beverage staff that ran this event. And we thought long and hard about how they were going to get treated through this process. How did they get in from the street? We were running shuttles back and forth from the gate to be able to help staff get in. We were doing things like that to try to make this a better experience for our staff as well. And then the USGA staff on the bottom right there, we thought about how they were going to be treated during the week too. You're not just hosting the players, you actually have a whole team of USGA staff here that you're dealing with for longer period than even the championship, because they're here 10 days before the championship even starts. So understanding what their office was going to be like, what were they, when they came in the morning, where are they going to get coffee? How are they going to get a bagel? How are they going to get a bottle of water? So all of that was in there for them. So every morning when they showed up, it was all there already.
So in terms of the food and beverage, Phil, did you did it all in-house through the whole championship, or was there any catering out?
No, it was all done in-house. We did everything ourselves. Yeah. Now the USGA, you know, that's a big part of this. The USGA pays for the players, for their staff, for their guests that they invite, things like that. So you're not hosting all of that stuff when you do a USGA championship. The USGA does pay you for that part of it. But the cost that we incur is the parts of like putting up the tent at the driving range and things like that. But from a food and beverage standpoint, the USGA is reimbursing you for what you're doing in that regard. And they contribute also to that welcome reception night, which is the party that we threw for the players.
But I mean, a la carte purchases from the spectators themselves.
So that we handled that through basically our snack bar part, and then also championship dining. So for instance, USGA doesn't pay for the parents to eat. They would pay for that on their own. And we set up a system where they would go to the championship dining buffet, and they would just easily be able to give a credit card to our staff, and they'd pay for their lunch on a daily basis. So we even had a couple special things we did for our lunches those first couple of days on Sunday before the championship started, which was practice round number 2. We brought the In-N-Out truck in and provided In-N-Out burgers to everybody on that day, along with the championship lunch buffet that we were doing. But everybody got a chance to have In-N-Out. We had 12 countries represented here, John. There was people that came from all over the country. A lot of girls and a lot of families that have heard of In-N-Out but have never had it. And they were coming to Los Angeles, and we wanted to make sure we gave them a little flavor of Los Angeles. And so we literally pulled the truck in right next to the practice area, and everyone got a chance to go have In-N-Out that day. And it was a huge hit. People loved it. Absolutely loved it. All right, Tasha, I'm going to let you talk about the branding.
Bore everyone with the branding. So the next part of this is just an opportunity for your club to really shine. And I would say it's more, you're combining the branding within your facility. So whether it's your club name, what you're doing during the event, but also what you do outside the event. And we had the theme of like maps, cars. We wanted to kind of do a little different take on like where we're situated in Los Angeles. A lot of people do like the Hollywood thing or the beach thing, and we thought it was a little different take to focus on maps. So you'll see in some other pictures that you'll see different themes, but we specifically honed in on license plates. We had met with the USGA marketing team, and they had told us about this golden ticket. And what happens when you qualify, and for some of you who have played in USGA championships, you may have qualified, which congratulations if you did, and you got a golden ticket, which is this, note. It's a little box that comes, I think it's handed to you by the USGA officials. And anyway, you get to get into a USGA championship. And we had the opportunity to sort of package something from the club with the golden ticket. So we had the idea of putting together a license plate that says our club name, that the girls, once they qualified, could take a social media picture. We put a note in with every license plate, giving them some instructions. And we saw a lot of pictures popping up on social media that say El Cab. It was a really neat part of the branding of the championship. And I can tell you, just because I got to hear it from our membership, there's a lot of club pride that you're getting with your members when they're getting to see things outside of their facility. They're seeing their name of their club, and they're very proud. I think also makes them very excited that the championship is coming. So we used that license plate theme and kind of ran it throughout the championship. You'll see on the bottom right, that's the winner, Rianne, sitting in a car that we brought in for some photo ops. And she signed that license plate at the bottom that says champ. And we thought it was a really neat way to brand our event that was just different than what you typically would see, whether it's the Hollywood thing that I mentioned before, or some of the other LA vibes that you've probably seen from a branding perspective. And then also within the championship, we put our name on a lot of things. Phil can probably touch on this more, but there's a lot of restrictions when you're hosting a USGA championship on what you can and cannot do in terms of putting a sponsor's name on things. And so we took the opportunity to, in photo ops, to make sure that if we're going to be paying for it, we're going to put El Cab on there. So if it's that magazine photo that you saw earlier with that big stand that the girls could take pictures behind, we put El Cab at the top, and we got some letters for our pool, and we put El Cab in our pool because we had the players. We allowed access to our pool area for the players, which we thought was a nice touch, which is right behind the player lounge. So we just tried to have everything sort of themed, but also specifically branded for our name. We are, I would call our club kind of a hidden gem. Some places or some people don't know that we're even there because we're down the street from a club that's maybe a little different in our area. So I think it's probably more well known that people know Braemar than they know El Cab. We're sort of hidden. And being that we're hidden, this is a great opportunity for us to put our name out there, to brand. And like I said, there's a cool factor of outside the club being able to showcase your name. If I go to the next screen though, I want to show you some of the neat things that we branded during the actual championship. So not only did we, like I mentioned, doing things that say our club name for photo ops, but we also did, and I'm not sure how many people here that are listening do any locker room gifts, but it's just like in anything else that you do in a member guest, if you're putting something special in the golf cart, or for us, we felt like the locker was a really neat place because it's a special area where their families aren't there. It's for them to be able to get away. And then every day that they open their locker, they're getting to see a really nice surprise that's special for them. So like on Sunday, for instance, the day before the championship, on the bottom right of those 4 pictures that are showing the locker room photos, you'll see a pair of pajamas, which is very age appropriate. People are wearing pajamas like as pants. So we got pajamas with the championship logo. We put a note in there saying "Sweet dreams, play well tomorrow." And then ahead of time, and I think this is a really good suggestion for when you're planning your next event, try to get as much information from the people playing in your tournament as you can. We were able to find out what their favorite snacks were, some of their interests, of course, any allergies, but we're able to get some information. So when that player said she liked Reese's Pieces, that's what went in her locker. So we were there pretty late stuffing those lockers on Saturday night, but we were going locker by locker and with the snacks that they had requested, and we put that into their locker. So the next morning when they opened that up, it was a custom gift for them. And we also did match play gifts, where as the rounds started with match play and then got down to the finals, each round or each day we had put in gifts in the lockers to congratulate them for making it to the next round. So it was a really neat way for us to continue that thread of hospitality throughout the week of the championship, along with branding our name of our club, branding the name of the championship, and giving the players a really memorable experience.
I think I would add to that, to Tasha's point about gathering as much information about people as possible beforehand is really key. And I'll give you a couple examples outside of the girls junior, where we run a guest day every year, John, that we call our NFL guest day. We do it like in December. And it's a fun day for guys to come on. We have this fun kind of football format to the golf. And then we encourage guys to wear jerseys and stuff like that. And we actually ask, when you register your guest to play in that, like, we want to know what your guest, who is your guest's favorite team? What, the Giants fan, Vikings fan, whatever. We take that info, and then Tasha will order hats. And so when you get to the club that day and you're playing in the NFL guest day and your favorite team is the Minnesota Vikings, we give you a Minnesota Vikings hat. We don't just give you an El Cab hat. So it's kind of a cool thing. They don't expect that, right? They're kind of blown away. Like, how did you know who my favorite team was? And it's that sort of effort that you put into it that makes a huge impression on people. I'll give you another example. When we have new members that join the club, through the process of going through the sort of joining process, they get accepted to the club, and the conversation that those new members have with our membership director on what they like and how they'd use the club, and you sort of glean information out of people and what they like. And what we try to do is then take that and tailor a gift to them when they join the club. And we've done things like boxes of cigars or whiskey or something like that to somebody that it's not like it's not on a form, it's just gleaned out of a conversation. right? It's just making notes after you have a conversation with somebody about what they really enjoy and how they're going to use the club. And then we try to tailor that sort of experience around that. And it really makes a huge impression on people because they don't even realize you're doing it. And you're doing it, and then you make just a tremendous impression on them when they receive something like that, that you paid attention. And I think that's kind of the key, is that you got to be willing to pay attention and make notes. And it really makes for an amazing hospitality experience.
So the final efforts here in terms of branding your event, there's some other things that you can do. We actually are showing a few pictures from our member guest, the Gaucho, and you can see behind at the very top picture there, we have actually a seating area that we put up for our derby for our final. And I think this is a really important point to make on this chat today, is that not only did we think about the players during that member guest, but we're also asking our membership, like we actually send notices out to our membership to come out and watch. We have hors d'oeuvres, we have drinks for them to view the finals, and we have seating for them. We think about that. And we also put it up early in the week so that we get people excited about, okay, what's happening? Oh yeah, it's the Gaucho Derby. We're going to have a place to go and watch, and we get our drinks. And I think it's just other ways that you can brand your tournament. We are slowly, one by one, in all of our major golf events, rebranding them and creating tournament logos. So for those of you who haven't done that yet, we would highly recommend that process. So I think it's a really neat way for that member who was super excited that they got into the member guest to now have that special logo that they got their item and they played in the event that year. So we are slowly rebranding all of our major events. You can see the Gaucho in a few different spots there. Couple other things just to make note of. We like to highlight some local businesses where we can. We did that during the championship, having the In-N-Out truck, as Phil talked about earlier. We also parked a milkshake truck right next to it. So pretty perfect for them to enjoy some California snacks. But also, if you have the opportunity to do any specific branding within your tournament, to have a signature drink from your club or a dish that you feel really good about. I'm sure a lot of you do that, but it's a really nice way to make something very custom to your event. And then for another couple examples from our member guests, if you can see that center picture at the bottom, those are our winners from last year. We actually make custom belt buckles that have the Gaucho logo on them, and we get them framed. And that's just another spin or example of how we're customizing the end of a tournament. So it's not just all the fun stuff in the beginning. We're making some custom items that each event will have its own special trophy. I think it was really important to our event chairs to, not only are we asking people to pay a lot of money to play in a member guest, but I think it's what Phil was talking about earlier. People will pay and they won't talk about that dollar amount if they feel like there's a lot of value and a lot of detail. And so we're adding a lot of detail in our member guests in all of our events, really, just like Phil mentioned, the NFL guest day. We do that with all of them, but especially those big ones, to be able to brand them within the club and then have them walk around at their friend's course with their Gaucho hat. You're branding outside the club. And then lastly, I think on here, there's other things you can read, but I would also recommend, having some sort of a signature hole focus too. We met with the USGA on having different areas for pictures. I think it's another nice way to be unique in your event and focus on some of the neat things that are very special about your club. What's a neat hole that you have? And people love pictures, right? So having an opportunity to have a photo op, that's our 9th hole on the bottom left photo. And there's a great view of the whole valley there. And so it was a neat place to see people taking photos. There's other places on the course that you can take pictures, but those are some other ways that you can brand your tournaments, where it's a small thing, but how memorable is it that they took a picture at their favorite hole on your golf course and they're sharing it on social media? But those are some examples of ways that you can brand your next event. Okay, that's it from us.
Phil, hey, me, selfishly speaking, I have so many takeaways from this, and Phil, Tasha, you touched on so many good points about you know, how to get a leg up in the customer service world. And it's about gathering information and putting the effort into knowing who you're serving. Because when you know who you're serving, you can control those controllables a little easier. So we all have so many experiences about going out in the world and to, you know, nice establishments where they don't know you. And it's hard to get that value because the service is not what it is when they know who you are, like we know who our customers are. So huge amounts of takeaways for me in this. On behalf of the Education Committee for the Southern California section, thank you so much, Phil and Tasha, for coming on and presenting, and congratulations for hosting a magnificent event there at LCAB. And for all the PGA members on this morning's call, you will get 1 PDR credit for attending this morning's webinar. Thanks for supporting, and take care, everybody. Have a great day. Thanks, Phil.
Thanks, John.
Tasha.
Thank you.